Now we might just kick things off there. Thanks everyone again for joining. My name is Emma Riley. I am a marketing executive with KORE Retrofit. And today I am joined by Leanne Faye Crow, who's our sales manager with KORE Retrofit, Mark Tubridy from Tubridy Engineering, Caroline Wilson from Mayo North East. We've Aileen Pritchard Flannery from KORE Retrofit and Darina Currid from KORE as well. So some housekeeping for today's session. It will be recorded and we'll be sending it across to you afterwards to view. We will also add a little survey as well, so please share your thoughts. We're always looking to improve our webinars, so any feedback is welcome. And there's also a Q&A, so at any stage there's a question box at the very top of your screen, so pop in any questions and we'll be able to go through some of them at the end. So our focus today, guys, we're helping homeowners better understand their options, navigate the process with confidence and make informed decisions about upgrading and improving their homes affected by defective concrete blocks. We're going to hear expert insights and get clarity on key questions around eligibility, funding and the next steps. So the topics we're going to cover today, we're going to go through an overview of KORE Retrofit as a one-stop shop and what we provide, what supports there is. Mark is then going to go through the Pyrite information document and building condition assessment, and then some post-work assessments as well. And then we go on to Caroline, and Caroline's going to go through the DC eligibility, the application process with the County Council, enhanced support and community support also. And then Aileen will touch on the grant amounts that you can avail of through the SCI in addition to the remediation grants funding and the roadmap as well to go with a one-stop shop. And then Darina will touch on contractor onboarding, and then we will have a Q&A at the end if anyone has any questions. All right, so I'll hand you guys over to Leanne.
Thanks, Emma, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. So I'm Leanne, I'm head of sales with KORE Retrofit, and myself and the team, we're delighted to be presenting today alongside two fantastic external speakers as well, so Caroline and Mark. This is actually the third webinar, DCB webinar we've delivered since the one-stop shop scheme has started, and we feel, you know, these information sessions, they're very important. There's a lot of information out there. For many homeowners, the process can feel a little bit daunting, can feel like a bit of a minefield at times. You know, working with all these different people, these multiple parties, understanding the different grants that are available, and, you know, keeping up with the ever-changing grant rules out there. So we feel these information sessions are very important, and our goal today is to break all of that down essentially into simple, streamlined steps for homeowners. And I suppose something that I really want to get across today in the webinar is a key part of how we operate is collaboration, and you'll see that from all the different speakers and the process we talk about today. And from working on now a large number of DCB projects to date, we've seen that this collaboration is absolutely central to making this work and to make it work effectively. And that means essentially working closely with your contractor, the competent building professional, your quantity surveyor, and then most importantly as well, you, the homeowner, working closely with you. So to start off, I suppose briefly on who we are. So KORE Retrofit is part of the wider KORE group, which consists of KORE Insulation and KORE Retrofit. KORE Insulation is a leading manufacturer of insulation products in Ireland, and then KORE Retrofit, we specialise in delivering energy efficiency upgrades to homes and businesses across the country. We're very proud to say that we were the first one-stop shop set up in Ireland, and as a one-stop shop, what that means is essentially we manage the entire process from start to finish for a homeowner. So that starts off at the initial assessment, the initial design stage, right through to project completion. And I suppose ultimately our goal is just to make the process as straightforward as possible for homeowners and stress-free, and maximising the grant supports available for you. So moving on, I suppose the DCB, the one-stop shop scheme itself, sorry, Emma, could I just go back to the previous slide? Sorry. The one-stop shop scheme, it is designed for homeowners, and particularly homeowners that are affected by defective concrete blocks, to allow them to avail of funding to bring them to new building regulations, essentially. And it is designed for homeowners that are doing multiple energy upgrades and carrying out that whole house approach, essentially. It is a fully managed solution. So as a one-stop shop, we carry out the full process for the homeowner, as I said, from start to, from the initial design right through to project completion. One of the huge benefits of this scheme and for a homeowner is the pay for the works net of grant. So essentially what that means is the grant that you are awarded, I think the average at the moment is around €30,000. That €30,000 is deducted up front. So you don't have to pay that money and then wait for it to come back. It is deducted up front, and it's a huge help with cash flow for homeowners. The criteria is we need to bring that home up to a minimum of a B or of a B, and 100 kilowatt hour uplift as well if you're installing an oil or gas boiler. But if you're installing a heat pump, the criteria is to get to that B or of a B now. You must be approved for the DCB scheme. So through your local county council, you must be approved, and you must supply us with your reference number as well. And one of the important things to note is to avail of the one-stop shop scheme, you must be incurring a cost. Okay, so what that means is essentially if your remediation works are fully funded, okay, by the local authority, then unfortunately you would not be eligible for the one-stop shop grant. So you just have to be incurring a cost to avail of the additional one-stop shop grant. And then if you move on to the next slide, Emma, sorry. So the benefits, I suppose, why would you use KORE Retrofit, or why would you go the one-stop shop route? So there is access to a wider range of grants available. So if you are carrying out, a range of upgrades, including, say, for example, floor insulation, mechanical ventilation, air tightness, you have access to a wider range of grants. It is a fully managed solution, as I said, and we can source a main contractor for you if you wish. If you haven't chosen a builder or a contractor, we can source them for you. Or if you have already appointed a main contractor or a builder, we work alongside your builder and your contractor and bring them along the journey as well with us. The grant amounts are deducted up front, and we also, KORE will include an additional energy credit discount as well. So that's an additional funding on top of the grants as well to allow you to avail of. And another major benefit is access to the low interest home energy upgrade loan. So, and I won't go into too much detail because I know, Aileen, you're probably going through that later in the slides, but that is a huge benefit as well. Low interest loans from major bank providers in the country. And then project management. So it's quality assurance, which is hugely important as well. You'll have a dedicated project manager from KORE who will visit and carry out multiple site inspections and quality inspections as well. So that's it, a whistle stop, I suppose, Chair, on who KORE Retrofit is, but I'm delighted now to hand over now to Mark. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, guys. So yeah, my name is Mark Tubridy, and I'm a chartered engineer. I'm based in West Clare. Primarily, we are undertaking surveys for the pyrite remediation scheme in Clare and Limerick, but we have been in other parts of the country as required. So essentially, I'll just touch on what we do in terms of the front end when you're initially making your application for the grant scheme, and where we would come in to assist when you've gone through the process and you get to the other side and you have your grant, and what happens then. So the first point of protocol is is the online portal. So in Clare and Limerick, there's an online portal through the county council, and it's through this portal that you would make your application for the pyrite grant scheme. This portal will be consistent throughout the process, right through to when you are back in your home after it's been remediated or repaired or rebuilt, whichever works. So all the documentation I'm going to touch on today would be loaded onto that portal as you move forward. So the first protocol is we would do a building condition assessment, and the building condition assessment is where you need an engineer to determine the damage threshold of your property. And what that means is we have to complete a visual inspection and determine whether or not you meet the minimum criteria to get on the scheme. So the minimum criteria to get on the scheme is they're looking for certain types of cracking and damage, which indicates that there's movement of some sort in your masonry block walls. The first criteria would be pattern cracking, which is a distinctive vertical and horizontal cracking. And I'm sure if you go on Google, you'll see quite a lot of very exaggerated examples of that, especially up in a place like Donegal, where the cracking it seems more extensive than it is in Clare, to be fair. But that pattern cracking is an indication that there's been movement in the render. Normally, render is when it's applied to the block walls, it's a rigid outer layer, but because of movement in block, you get this pattern type cracking because the plaster is effectively popping off the wall. A second type of damage we're looking for is we look around the reveals of windows and doors. And again, when a building is first constructed, the plaster work is installed against the window, and there should be a nice clean seal. But quite often, if you look at any house that are affected, there's little gaps, and they can be very, very minor, like hairline, the width of a hair. But in some really poor cases, you could have 5, 6, maybe even 10 mil of a gap where the windows, which is obviously another indication that something is moving. And it's not the window that's moving; it's the reveal. The reveals are connected to the block. So again, it's an indication that there's something moving in the wall. And again, that's just another indicator for us that for our report. Other ones are you could have large vertical cracks at the corner of your house. Again, what makes them unusual typically is that they're on the outside leaf of block, but not the inside. So in normal structural subsidence conditions where a foundation is giving way, you should see cracking on both sides of the wall. But in houses affected by pyrite, it's on one side, that corner cracking, and that's it. Again, and just to give context, I suppose, was when I first got involved in pyrite, it was because I was seeing these types of cracking, which I could not put a rational explanation. It just didn't add up that it was structural subsidence or settlement, because the dots weren't connecting. So, and that's what led me to research pyrite, and so I've been involved in it for a few years now. Another indicator is cracking on the internal walls, which carries through to the outside. And again, what it's doing is it's simply just showing you can have these random horizontal cracks inside a house, and they're also outside. It's just indicating that there's movement in the walls. So once we go through that process, we would do a visual assessment of the house. We do a visual assessment of the outside. We do a visual assessment of the inside. We gather details such as the location. For example, is the house exposed to extreme weather? Has the walls been pumped with the beaded cavity insulation? There's a number of different information. Points of information that we would gather, which allows us to make our final determination. The age of the build is important. Is there houses around the area that have damage consistent? And the other one would be we would ask if they know where the blocks came from, or they have evidence of where the blocks came from. It would be down in Clare. There's a few areas where there appears to be an issue with blocks with some quarries. So again, it just gives you another indication that there's an issue. Ultimately, our assessment doesn't actually confirm that you have pyrite or mica or any of those deleterious material. It doesn't confirm it. It just basically determines that you meet the threshold for the core testing. It's only core testing that can confirm exactly what the issue is with the block. So what you're seeing in front of you there is just a cover page of a building condition assessment, and really what it does is we go through the history of a building, all the relevant information that's available to us, such as the age, where we're seeing the cracking, you know, the location of the house, the orientation of the house, is it facing west or is it facing north or whatever. You know, these all have an impact on the level of damage that you will see in houses. And at the end of that report, we will make a recommendation, and that recommendation will be, there's 4 categories of damage. There's category 1, which is effectively undamaged. Category 1 does not mean that you don't have an issue with pyrite, but it simply means that you do not meet the criteria for core testing. Category 2 would be the next level up, which is you have some pattern cracking on walls, but you have no other there's no other damage showing. Category 3 would be pattern cracking plus one of the damages, the types of cracking I mentioned, such as cracks in the corner or you know, cracks around the reveals of wall or between the windows. And the category 4 is you've a combination of pattern cracking plus 2 or more of the other types of cracking. So at the end of the report, I'm able to make a recommendation that you need core testing. That report then would be sent back to the applicant, whoever's making the application, and they would upload that report onto their portal, and that would support their application to get on the pyrite scheme. Now, the online application process there's more involved than just the building condition assessment. The second part of the assessment that we also carry out for our clients is you have to demonstrate compliance with planning permission with your house. So when you make this application, you need a letter of compliance from an engineer or an architect or a building professional with the required insurances to state that your house has been built in compliance with planning permission. So again, as part of our site surveys, we would also generally we would order the planning file from the council, and we would do that assessment, and we would give you a report to state that that your house meets the required planning permission. Unfortunately, in some cases where houses have been built and they're not what was originally planned, it requires planning retention before you make it onto the scheme. So unfortunately, there has been cases where people have bought houses or they've built extensions and things like that where they haven't regularized them properly, and it just delays it a little bit, but it is a process we have to go through. So the next slide there is just giving you an example. You can see there's, generally speaking, you can see the cracks through block work there. Now, when we do our assessments, normally we're looking at external plaster work. And the reason external plaster work gives you, it gives you a better visual representation of the cracks, because in the block work, sometimes it can be quite hard to see the cracks if you didn't have the render. So the render actually shows you the movement in the wall, because you get these exaggerated types of pattern cracking. If you have any concerns yourself about your own house and you're just looking to have a look yourself, if you look at the external warning signs, you've web-like cracking, which is basically, that's what it is, like a spider web. They're just cracks that have no discernible direction. They're moving in various directions. They're interlinking. In some cases, they're just, you'll often see them on either side of a windowsill, which is a weak point in the wall, or you'd see them overhead a windowsill, and that's just where a lot of the load comes down from the wall overhead. So you see cracks there. You have the wide vertical cracks in the corner. Again, it's about 8 inches or 200 million from the corner. You'll just see a crack, and it's generally speaking goes straight up, and they can be quite wide. Also, if you were to put a straight edge on the wall, you'll see that the wall is actually buckled a bit. movement around windows and doors is an obvious one, because it gives you a very clear indication that there's movement. And so if you were to go out and look at your walls, and especially if your windows are original windows, and you see movement, you see gaps now, that means that there's movement ongoing. And unfortunately, if you have movement, it generally means, or in my experience, that is a very clear indicator that there's an issue with the blockwork. The last one there is bulging and leaning walls. This one is less obvious and much harder to confirm, simply because in some cases you might think you're bulging, but it may simply be just the quality of the render work when it was originally installed. But in some cases, if you were to put a straight edge on, there'll be quite distinctive bulges in the wall where you may have a 10 mil gap. If you hold your level vertically level, there'll be a 10 mil gap on the top and bottom of the level, which means, again, that's a sign that the render was moved. And if the render is moving, that again is an indication that the blockwork is moving, and that's an indication there's an issue with the blocks. If you want to move on to the next slide there. Yeah. So the general process for us is that we would, when it comes to the assessment, we will send out we would send out a quotation and an information requirement. The information that we require before we go to site is we were looking for information like when the house is built. We look for planning permission references, which allows us to order the planning file from the county council. And again, this is just about being time efficient, because it can take weeks to get these things organized. If you have receipts from the original block supplier, that's useful. We will include that in our report. We don't include in our report verbal confirmations. We only look, if you have written evidence, we will put that in. Otherwise, we don't include it in our reports, because look, it's just from our own side. We'd like to see that we have written evidence before we put anything in the report. We look for timeline of crack and repairs. And again, the timeline of cracks is an interesting one, because generally speaking, what we see is quite a lot of our clients, and I would say in the high 85–90% of our clients, have seen cracks come in the last 5–6 years. And some of these houses were built in, say, the 80s and 90s. So again, from a structural point of view, you shouldn't see cracks start, again, settlement cracks don't start after 20 years and or 30 years of a house. Is, settlement cracks usually start within a short period after a house is built, and usually it will settle, or if it doesn't settle, it'll turn into some subsidence. So what we're seeing is quite often there's this cracking is become noticeable to our homeowners in the last 4 or 5, in some cases the last 5 or 6 months. So they weren't noticed and now they are. And again, that's just an indication that something is changing. And again, it just indicates that it's not an issue with, it's not an issue with subsidence. It's something in the block. So, these are all very vital pieces of evidence for us, because it allows us to be able to as best we can, and to give it a determination. And again, that allows the housing body to admit the houses to the scheme. Once you're on the scheme, the housing body look after the core testing, and that's why they do look for extensive amount of information to be able to make determinations. Because unfortunately, in some cases, while there is some cracking on houses, it just doesn't meet the criteria for the pyrite scheme. So, there's either because it's too early, and something I didn't touch on earlier, I mentioned the word pattern cracking. To get on the scheme, the pattern cracking, it needs to be 1 mil wide. And honestly, I'm not sure why that's the case, why it has to be that depth, but it has to be 1 mil wide. So in some cases, we do have pattern cracking, but it just hasn't reached the required width yet. And what that means is that we just have to wait. And, at some point, it likely will get that to the required width. So the documents needed for the grant application, again, we need the MPRN number, which is off electricity meter number. It usually begins with 100 or 1009. That's just that's a unique ID for a house. All houses that have been connected to the ESP have that, and it means that every house has a unique ID. And when you're making your application. You need to provide ownership of the property. You would need to provide tax clearance and property tax compliance, and we would provide the building condition assessment, and we can provide the planning compliance documentation as required. When you're looking at proof of residence, it's like an ESB or a utility bill, or maybe an insurance bill for the property. What's really important as well is that the application is made through the portal, but it's made by the applicant. Now, I know in County Clare they have a team who specialise in helping people who would have difficulty working with computers and the online process. But the online application process generally is done by the applicant, and that's important because there's a lot of personal information. And for data protection alone, we wouldn't do any online applications. We provide the required documentation. We provide support for our clients when they're doing their online application, but it is all managed by the applicant due to the volume of personal information that's involved. In terms of, you have to provide evidence of license or passports and various other documentation. So once we provided you with our condition assessment, and assuming that you meet the criteria and the planning compliance, you can complete your online application, and that online application then goes through to the relevant county council, who will vet it, and from there it goes on to the housing body, who will admit you to the scheme. So that kind of covers all the front end, we'll call it, works that need to be done for the pyrite scheme. So, but that's not the end of the road for us. So earlier there was a letterhead on the document, which was the building condition assessment. So my company at the moment I have a company, Tubridy Engineering, but we have a second business called Atlantic Building Consultants, and that was set up specifically for the follow up or the second stage of the grant, which is the actual execution of the repair works or the demolition works, or whatever grant scheme you get. So my company and another company joined together. The other company specialized, they're an architectural design business, and they specialize in planning, design, construction, detailing. So once you've gone through the pyrite scheme and you have had your core testing, and you have the cores have been sent off and been tested, at some point you will get an offer from the housing body from the DCP. You'll get your offer for the remediation for that property, and the remediation options vary from option 1 to option 5, I think. So option 1 is full demolition. Option 2 is the external walls, and then it filters down. There's various options for timber frame houses, and there's options then for just external walls, and so on and so forth. So once you get your grant offer, we then have to move on to the construction phase, which is the remediation phase, and that's where we as an engineering business will come back in to assist you. So as part of that phase of the project, we need to provide the DCB, the grant scheme. We need to provide them with various drawings and reports to demonstrate the works that we're proposing to do, and a demonstration of how we're proposing to do it. And that includes, the demolition work, how we're proposing to do it, what we're proposing to do with the waste materials, how we're proposing to complete the repair works. There's various quality standards, safety standards that we would need to comply with, and also there's a timeline demonstration of how long it would take to do that work, and that would be submitted to the in the same portal that you put in your initial grant. You will be putting in this documentation, and that documentation is required for you to accept your grant. So once your grant is accepted, you now can move into the construction phase. And in the construction phase, for anyone who's ever built their house and got a mortgage, you would have if you were in that phase, you would have recalled getting your engineers would have had to sign off the stage payment certificates for you to draw down money. Well, it's an identical process for the scheme. There is stage payment certificates that need to be signed by your builder and by your engineer. And along with submission of invoices, you can then start drawing down your money as you complete your work on your house. Again, it all depends on what the agreed repair is and the grant funding you have. So where we assist in that process is that we would provide engineering support, design support. So in some cases, you want to make slight adjustments to the design of your property, that's fine, relocate a wall inside in the house, or, that kind of thing. We can do that. We would we would complete the construction drawings and the scopes of work to go out to builders. We would source the builders for the applicants, vet their pricing, and then present a recommendation on the builder we think you should go with. And once the builder starts, we would then complete regular site visits. It ranges from 6 to 12, depending on the property, or as required. We would be your client. We would be the client representative. Basically, would be between the client and the builder, and dealing with quality matters or financial matters or whatever comes up in a standard building process. And we would also be there at the end to issue the final certificates of compliance, which would be your final documentation, and to provide you with your final sign off to say the house has been completed in compliance with the relevant standards, building standards. We would also work with KORE on the when they do their SEI. So where we would be administrating the drawings. So again, we would be coordinating with them and making sure that the proposed construction that we're putting forward for the house will actually also meet their requirements. So there is crossover between KORE and our consultant side when we're in the building side. So that goes. So we take it. Currently, we're taking it the full spectrum from the first initial meet, where we look at your house, to essentially being there when the keys are handed back to you and you're back in your house. And currently, we've just completed our 6th house. We've 6 people that have just moved back in, and a lot of other houses that are at various stages of construction and various stages of the grant scheme and various stages of waiting for me to come out to do our inspection. So, we've been through this process quite a bit now with the DCB. So that brings us through. So look, that's everything from me. So I'll leave it to Caroline. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Huge thank you to the KORE team for having me here today on behalf of Mayo North East, in partnership with the Mayo County Council, and the project is funded through the Department of Housing. So we can go on to the next slide, Emma, there. Thank you very much. I'm going to go straight on to the eligibility process for the scheme. Relevant dwelling is located in the designated, which is Mayo. There is other counties, obviously, in the scheme now. You've got Mayo, Donegal, Clare, Limerick, Sligo, Wexford and Fingal are the latest 2 that has been added to the scheme also. The construction of the dwelling completed prior to the 31st of January 2020, and the defective blocks containing were used in the building of the property. The relevant owner of the dwelling became the owner prior to the 31st of January, and uses the dwelling as the principal private residence. Also, the owner of a rented dwelling registered with the rented Residential Tenancy Board on or before the 1st of November 2021. Households are limited to 1 rental property, which is subject to a sliding scale clawback if the property was ever sold, and that's within 20 years. This scheme is in place for up to approximately 2038. It commenced in June 2023, and it's in place for a period of 15 years. So they're the 2 main dates: the 31st of January 2020 for the principal private residence, and if you for the resident tenancy board rentals on or before the 1st of November. So go on to the next slide. Thank you. So the first step when starting the journey is, as Mark did point out, is the building condition assessment report, and that determines, the eligibility to the scheme, and that is completed by either a registered architect, a chartered engineer, or a chartered surveyor, and that's a visual inspection of the property to determine the damage threshold, which that meets the criteria for the scheme, and the cracks must be more than 1 millimetre apart, and they run both horizontal and vertical. So that's usually your passport to getting on the scheme, is this building condition assessment report, and this is usually an upfront cost to the client, but it is reimbursable once you are accepted onto the scheme. So the next thing is the application process. The application process is first and foremost, you need to register with with Mayo County Council. Actually, I'm just back on the application process, the previous slide, actually, Emma, sorry. So you need to register with Mayo County Council website on the portal, and they're usually simple details, which is your PPSN, your email, your phone number, and your TCAN, which is your tax clearance access number. That can be got from Revenue, and it's a 6-digit number that is usually issued by when your taxpayers are in place, that will be easily retrieved via Revenue. And then there is a list of documents that needs to be uploaded, usually in PDF format, for the scheme. And as I said, the BCA report is the first one, and then the planning compliance certificate. Many homeowners may have a planning compliance certificate. However, some may need to get one, and Mark outlined the details on that. But if you have had no changes to your property or anything, a lot of people would have that planning compliance document with other documents of their home. So also required for the scheme is your proof of ID, your original planning reference number, and a copy of the original planning permission, and your meter point reference number, your local property tax summary, a history form. That's to ensure all your property is paid to date from all the number of years that you would have been in the home, and a title deed or your folio number. Title deed is usually when people own the house outright, or your folio if there is a mortgage on the property, and that can be easily accessed by landdirect.ie. And that's you can pay €5. It's a digital process through LandDirect, and that can be got very easily. So once all those documents, you submit your application via the portal onto the Mayo County Council website. So go on to the next slide, and then the process. When that application is received with Mayo County Council, they go through a verification of the documents at validation stage to ensure all the documentation that you have sent in is in place. So that's very important, to ensure that all documents that is required is in place. So that's where I come into play as the Defective Concrete Blocks facilitator in Mayo. I can assist anybody that requires help with this process. And once Mayo County Council has verified, it goes on to the housing agency, and then they usually deal with the technical side. Mayo County Council deals with the administration side of your application, and they verify the damage threshold from once that goes on to the housing agency. They also come out to the house to actually visit the property, and they will first of all they will do a visual of the property, and also then they will go on to do core testing. And this usually process of the core testing, the housing agent that carries out, that they try a triage of the homes, and that's usually in the order of severity of the homes. The houses will be prioritized, the worst affected first, and so on. So they will notify the applicants usually 30 days prior to visiting the home. That's for both the visual, and then when they will be coming out to do the KORE testing. So once the KORE testing is done, then the results comes back from the lab. They are both, the housing agency then gives on the results to Mayo County Council, who in turn will tell the client or get onto the homeowner, and they will be notified of their grant amount and the option that has been given to the property. There are currently 5 options on the scheme. Option 1 is a full demolition. Option 2 to 5 are outer 2, 3 and 4 are outer reliefs, and option 5 is a rendering of a particular wall or walls of the property. So once approved, the timeline, you have 18 months to start your work, and 130 weeks, which has been changed. It was 65 weeks, so that has been recently changed in the new amendments, and that gives you approximately up to 2.5 years to complete the project from start to finish. And if the applicant is unhappy with the option, there is an appeals process that the applicant can do within 90 days of getting their grant amount. So the total maximum amount on the scheme is 462,000, and that is for the remediation option together with ancillary grants, but the total shall not exceed the 462. The auxiliary grants include alternative accommodation up to 16,500 when you move out of your home for your rent and your to pay rent or housing. Your overall your storage and removal is up to 5,500. Immediate repairs for urgent safety works is up to 5,500. And BCA professional fees, as I said, they are reimbursed upon approval also, and LPT property tax is for 6 years, and once your property is accepted onto the scheme, that's another, you get 6 years local property tax free for that period. So then combining our DCB funding with the SAI energy grants, it does help, especially for the larger homes that sometimes go out of the grant amount of money that has been offered. So there is a total there of up to 39,250, and one-stop shop managed is registered. A registered one-stop shop handles the assessments, grants, and the construction. I always tell the client, the homeowners, to make sure that there's a pre-works B or prior to doing any work, and that the home must have initial rating of B3 or worse, and that there is a council that the council must submit. You must submit the Mayo County Council confirmation of approval letter either to your one-stop shop or to SAI if you're only going for, we'll say, individual grants. And then SAI prior approval, you have to ensure they have the official letter of offer, or indeed your one-stop shop will get that prior to starting any energy works. Now, also there is unsecured up to 75,000 SAI home energy upgrade loan scheme there on offer as well. And housing adaptation grants is another financial assistance for people who may have a disability related, need home adaptations, ramps or whatever, wet rooms, and they can be integrated into your build also. So there, I can provide details on that. Then this is a listing of all the new amendments that had just come into play recently in February this year, and the latter of the amendments came into play on the 27th of May. Now I'm just going to go the increase quickly on those is the increased grant caps retrospective benefit qualifying since the 29th of March 2024. Yet extended timeframes allowed to complete the remediation has gone up to 130 weeks. You have time to apply for an extension was 12 weeks. That has gone down to 2 weeks. To waive a requirement to meet the damage threshold for attached dwellings. And there's also a provision put in place for adjacent remediation option in particular circumstances. That's to do with disabilities. And there's an extended relevant owner status to certain applicants. There's a second charge on RTB properties. Anyone that has got the retrospective element payment. Ancillary grants to applicants who have been awarded the maximum grant subject, they can also apply, but just to remind you that our maximum grant is 462 overall, and the sharing of certain information with SAI, that's to prevent any double funding, etc. So there's also supports to do with mental health. We've got My Mind, face-to-face counselling. There's a location there in the Mayo North East office in Ballina, and there's another one in Ballinrobe. Free appointments for homeowners, and also we have a support emotional group that has been set up. There's one in Westport and one in Ballina, and that's run by Anne, and her details are on here as well. And then there's a support group, which is the Mayo Pirate Action Group, and there's two Mayo Pirate Action Groups in Mayo, and they offer peer support and local advocacy. And this is just a summary of statistics of the DCB applications in place, which Mayo comes in at 499. That was at the end of April. And just to let you know, as there's two others on that now, which is listed, which is Wexford and Fingal, but they've just been recently added. And just to remind you that there is a total of 3,431 applications in place throughout. So that's just for statistical purposes. And my details are on there. The main services that I provide is application guidance. I guide homeowners through the application process. I focus generally on the disadvantaged, vulnerable individuals. Support offered one-to-one in outreach clinics. I offer them throughout Mayo, particularly All North Mayo, Westport and Castlebar, and they're strictly by appointment and free and confidential, and facilitate direct access to relevant support services. So they're my details, and if anybody requires any details, I would be more than happy to help people. And as Mark also outlined, I would offer service for uploading and helping people get their application correctly and put in place into Mayo County Council. So that's a very important process, just to make sure that I am there to assist people to get their application in. And that's my role, to make sure that we can work together with the SAI to get you back into your home as smoothly as possible. And thank you all very much, and thanks to KORE for having me here today. Thank you.
Very much, Caroline. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Aileen Pritchard-Flannery, and I'm the sales coordinator for the Western area within KORE Retrofit. So I offer grant administration and support to homeowners affected by the defective concrete blocks. So alongside your remediation grants that you have from the county councils or your local authority, there is SEI grant support to help with your funding. So where we come in is that there is grant funding towards your energy upgrades. So when we're talking about energy upgrades, you're looking at funding towards the likes of your heating system, so the heat pump. If you're not installing a heat pump, you have your heating controls. You also have grant access there to your full range of insulation measures. So everything from your floor, your wall insulations, depending on the type of rebuilt materials you're using, as well as attic insulation, your windows, doors, solar panels, mechanical ventilation, and air tightness measures. So the grants that you get depends on your property type, so the dwelling type. It doesn't matter the size of the property, it's down to the dwelling. So the detached properties will get their set amount there of up to 39,000, and then you have the semi-detached, mid-terraced and apartments. So it all depends on your dwelling type on what your total grant funding will be. On average, you would see roughly for the semi-detached properties, you are looking at about that 27 to 32,000, and then for your detached properties, we do see up to 36,000 euros. So the one-stop shop scheme, your retrofit journey, begins with a pre-assessment, so a consultation call. So you can book in with one of our sales administrators to have a chat about the process, and we will give you the information of where to start. It can be very overwhelming when there's so much information out there and you've got two different separate grant schemes, but we are here to help support you through that and to break down those barriers and help you access in as stress-free a possible manner the grants. So the first point of call is to book in for a consultation call with us. We'll chat you through the steps. If your property hasn't been demolished, it's important that we have some assessments in place. So the first assessment there that we would recommend is your home energy assessment. So the home energy assessment, this provides us with all the necessary documentation in order to make a successful SEI grant application for you. So the home energy assessment will include your reports such as your BEO certificate, your BEO advisory, pre-dwelling and a post-dwelling report. A technical assessment report is also included there, which is important for the sizing of things like your heat pump. If your house has already been demolished, sometimes we will be able to access the documents necessary through the likes of your engineers. So it's not a case that if you don't get to us before your house has been demolished, maybe you're only finding out about these additional grants. Certainly, please feel free to reach out to us. We can look at all cases on a case-by-case basis. Once we have your home energy assessment carried out, we would then do a review call with you, the homeowner, to chat you through the next steps. So with the defective concrete blocks, most people are rebuilding to a slightly higher standard than what they were. So we are including things like your triple glazed windows. People are doing their underfloor insulation, they're installing their heat pumps and solar panels. So we'll explain to you step by step what is recommended in combination together. For example, if you're installing your mechanical ventilation heat recovery system, we will chat you through the importance of air tightness measures and why everything needs to go hand in hand. So we will guide you through all those upgrades and then explain to you where we are going to ensure that we're not double granting. So I suppose a typical measure that we would see that can cause confusion is the likes of the windows and doors. Everyone's reinstalling windows and doors into their property, but it's really important that we only access a grant for these through either your council remediation funds or the SEI. So we can't double fund there. So once we have your HEA review call completed, chatted you through the process, your expectations, clarified whether you're extending or downsizing, we can then liaise either with the contractor that you've brought on board to the project, or we can help you source a contractor. For the vast majority of people, they've been recommended a contractor from the likes of their competent building professional, who usually do supply you with a list of suitable contractors. So we will then engage with them on your behalf for pricing. And then once we have the pricing back from your contractor, we are able to do and process your grant application to the SEI. So when we receive your quotation from the contractor, we will provide you with a sales quote based on those figures, and we can then provide you with a grant proposal. So this will outline clearly how much in grant funding we will be able to access for you. And as Leanne had mentioned earlier as well, we deduct this grant funding from the very beginning. So if you had energy upgrades worth let's say, for example, €50,000 and you had grants worth 30,000, you're only paying the 20,000. So that's one of the major benefits of coming through ourselves as well, is that we will help to bridge that gap of funding for you, and it helps with the flow of funding for you as well, that we have deducted that grant amount at source. So once you have your successful grant application, we will then provide you with contract, and we then begin the process of processing your project over to the operations team, where this will be handed over to accounts for your invoicing and your project manager. So with the project manager, you would have from KORE Retrofit, they would oversee all the energy upgrades from start to finish. So they will ensure that quality assurance for you, the homeowner, that everything's been done correctly. They will do 3 site visits. So they'll do a pre-works visit, a mid-works inspection, and an end-of-works inspection. And this is where we're ensuring that everything has been done to the correct standard set out by the SEI, so that we are being compliant with their expectations. This ensures successful drawdown in grant funding. So you will have someone from KORE Retrofit helping to oversee all of those energy upgrades are correctly installed. Once the works have been completed, we then do your SEI grant funding drawdown. And this is where I suppose we would be able to do our declaration of works, and your contractor would be paid their final instalments as well. So we do contractor instalments throughout the project as well. So once like we said, the works are complete, declaration of works, then a final BER needs to be completed also. So we will look after that for you as well. So final BER is then presented to the SEI to show that we did complete the uplifts required in order to meet the criteria for the grants. Just get to go on to the next slide there, Emma. So then you have your certifications, your SEI inspection. Sometimes we get inspections, sometimes we don't. It really does depend. Project is complete and grant release. So we mentioned earlier there about the loans that are available. So if you were to come through the KORE Retrofit for your one-stop shop SEI grants, there is this SBCI loan that is available to you, the homeowners. So you can borrow a minimum of €5,000, maximum of €70,000. We will fill out the HUELS form. So this is the necessary form that needs to be completed in order to access that funding. We can only create or complete, pardon me, that HUELS form if you have your dwelling reports in place. So that's the importance of having your home energy assessment, your pre-BERs, your pre-dwelling and post-dwelling reports completed so that we can access these grants for you. The interest rates are between 3.5%. They are provided by the main pillar banks. So AIB, Bank of Ireland, Permanent TSB and Avon Bank through An Post are providing them. There are a select few of credit unions scattered throughout the country that are also providing them. But like I said, the main four pillar banks are your probably most accessible port of call there. Flexible repayment terms of 1 to 10 years. 75% of the borrowed amount must be spent on the energy upgrades. The remaining 25% then can then be spent on the associated work. So if there's any remedial works, painting, decorating needed in association with that. It is paid out up front before commencement of works, and then the solar panels are only eligible if they're installed as part of the deep retrofit scheme. And this is just a little bit of additional information there from the SEI directly. So I suppose the whole aim of this is to help, like we said earlier, bridge that gap. A lot of people, when they're rebuilding, unfortunately, the funding that they have doesn't quite cover exactly what they want to do to upgrade their property. Most people want to upgrade to modern standards. So it's to create that warm, comfortable, modern home with that warmth factor, more economic to run, very important to try and keep our energy bills down. And then that is where you will see the benefits of investing in these additional upgrades to your property. So like I had said there, we have a full set of a team there that can guide you through this process. So if you want to book in for a call for a little bit more information, please feel free to visit our website. And I'm going to hand you over to Dorina, who is going to chat a little bit more about the contractor onboarding.
Thanks a million, Aileen, and thanks everyone for joining today. So hi, my name is Dorina. I'm Business Development Manager here for KORE Retrofit, and part of my role here with KORE Retrofit is managing our supply chain. So questions I get asked a lot by homeowners is, how do I know my contractors understand the quality that's needed to be able to properly build and retrofit my house? So KORE Retrofit has built a really, really robust onboarding process that's built around quality, accountability and customer service. We provide our contractors with the full understanding of the standards that are required and expected from SEIA and KORE Retrofit when it comes to retrofitting a property. We offer ongoing technical support and guidance from our project management team. We support our contractors through SEIA registration and compliance. They're actually assigned a particular project manager. So you might get some pushback from contractors when you're speaking to them, you know, if you decide to work with a local contractor, just to understand the process of working with a one-stop shop. And some might push back to say there's actually a lot of paperwork and administration involved, but we have a team to be able to help with that. So we help our contractors be able to gather that information as well. Mark mentioned that's a service they provide as well. So we just try to make this journey as seamless as possible for the contractor, and as well to ensure that you guys are getting the really high standard quality build. We support our contractors through gathering paperwork and certification. We also, as mentioned, have the ability to work with local contractors. So we ourselves have a really robust supply chain of contractors. But if you, as the homeowner, decide to maybe work with a contractor that's been recommended by the competent building professional, or through your local network, we can work with that contractor as well. And it's my role to support that contractor through our onboarding process and really ensure that they know what is expected of them through this full journey. So ultimately, we operate a really high quality supply chain of contractors, and it's just that extra level of assurance for homeowners that they're working with really, really high standards throughout the course of the build. And look, if you've any questions in relation to that contractor journey, please feel free to reach out to me at any point. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll hand you over now for the Q&A session.
Perfect, brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Special thanks to Caroline and Mark, our external presenters. I'm just going to pop into the Q&A now to see if we have any questions. I'm conscious we are going a little bit over time, so we might just go through one or two. And then if anyone does have any more questions or anything, feel free to send us an email and we'll get back to you with an answer. All right. So we just have one question here from Desi. So Desi has asked, at what stage during a DC project is it best to contact the one-stop shop to commence the process of the SCI grants, and how much of the €30,000 available grant would a DCB property avail of if their remediation was on a like-for-like basis to that of the existing dwelling house? Probably Leanne or Aileen might answer that one.
So I suppose as early as possible is the simplest answer to that, but it's never too late to reach out to us. So even if you are at the beginning of works and perhaps your energy upgrades haven't been installed yet, we can still look at your application. So it's never too late to reach out to us. We can look at it at a case-by-case scenario, but the best time is to reach out to us as soon as you know that you're going to do a rebuild, so that we can get the relevant documentation in place in order to ensure successful grant funding for you. How much in grant funding can you get? It all depends on the combination of energy measures that are taking place within the property. So in relation to that, it really is, again, a case-by-case basis of what is being installed to the property. Whether you're building by your poured concrete, your ICF properties, or your cavity block again, or timber frame, that will determine the wall grant type, for example. So it's very much so case by case that we'd have to look at exactly how much in grant funding that you could access. But as I mentioned a little earlier, usually with semi-detached properties, what I would see going through is about 27 to 32,000, and for your detached properties, anything up to 36,500 or so.
Thank you, Aileen. Just another question there. What is KORE's cost for management of grants at the moment, and does KORE pay the builder directly for works, or is the grant money issued after the build is finished?
So the first part of that question there is the project management fee. Leanne, do you want to answer?
No, you're all right. Yeah, I can jump in there, Aileen. So the cost is a case-by-case basis, John, and I'm conscious that this webinar is recorded as well, so we could be issuing at a later date, so the fee may change essentially. So just contact us directly, John, just on your project, and we can determine that cost. It is a case-by-case basis, and so is the payment terms as well, is case-by-case based on the homeowner themselves. And then what was the second question? Sorry. Yeah, is the builder paid directly? Yes. The cost of the energy efficiency works is transferred from the homeowner to KORE Retrofit and back out to the builder. So that flow of money comes through the one-stop shop, and it is issued in intervals. So there's certain payment terms as well with the builder that we set. No, it's not issued just at the very end. It's issued at various different payment terms throughout the build.
Thank you, Leanne. Robert is asking, do we cover Donegal? Yeah, we do cover Donegal. We're nationwide, so we cover all the counties, and everywhere is affected with DCB. More recently, as you said, Wexford and Wicklow, as well. And just one more question there. Is there a time scale from when you get a pre-BER to when you start the rebuild? That's from John.
Yeah, there is 5 years, John. So the pre-BER just has to be dated within the past 5 years.
Perfect. Yeah, I think, does anyone else have any more questions or anything just before we finish up? No. All good. Okay. That's it. So thank you so much everyone for joining. We will be able to send you on a recording of the webinar so you can watch back, and for anyone who wasn't able to attend as well. We will be adding in a little survey, so if you just have a couple of minutes to fill it out, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again to our presenters, and yeah, we'll let you know when our next webinar is, and hopefully we'll be seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.